Over the past year, we've come to see more clearly than ever the frustration in many communities of color and the feeling that our laws can be applied unevenly.
So red is racial and ethnic disparity.
Red is a racial and ethnic disparity, which is the whole idea of whether or not you're treating people differently because of their race.
Red is racial and ethnic disparity, and it is particularly in this county. We are one of the leading counties in having many more African American people in the system than white people.
And if you actually look at some of the FDLE data that's out there, unfortunately, all the graphs will show the best county and the worst county, and then they'll show that particular county that you're searching in between. And on every graph is Alachua County as the worst.
African Americans are overrepresented in the juvenile justice system through all points. So it's not just a law enforcement issue. It's from the initial law enforcement contact to the arrest, to the booking, to when they see the judge and their sentencing, through the sentencing into the high-risk programs and into the probation area.
You have an overrepresentation of minority families. This just didn't happen last year, or it just didn't happen 5 or 10 years ago.
A long time ago, the black youth and the white police officers did not get along, none at all. They never seen the police officers trying to do something good in the community. When they seen them in the community, they was always arresting somebody or hitting on someone.
This has been an ongoing sort of systemic and institutional sort of issue that we've had to deal with, and law enforcement has inherited this issue, and has inherited because, again, of 200-300 years of disparate treatment.
African American overrepresentation is a problem nationwide due to the concept called cops on dots. And cops on dots works like this. You have your neighborhood that is a high crime area. So you have X amount of robberies or burglaries in that area. You would want to concentrate your law enforcement efforts in that area in order to stop those crimes. And the result of that, the cops on dots theory is, when you have a concentration of police in one area, we start to over-enforce the smaller crimes when the big crimes are not happening.
They patrol certain areas more than they do others. That said, there's a high population of minorities in those communities, thus resulting in more contact with law enforcement, and unfortunately that contact is negative.
If your demographics in your particular community are 25 to 30% minorities, but your arrest rates show that you are arresting 90% of the kids are minority, and our community happens to be African American. So you have now what's called a DMC issue. You have an overrepresentation of a minority group.
It becomes an issue for the overrepresentation of African Americans because typically in the neighborhoods where we have these high crime areas that goes hand in hand with poverty, and in our county specifically, some of our low income communities are African American, and that's where those numbers start to skyrocket.
Where I'm coming from, but to be honest, from what I've seen, I know we're known for being the most low income. You go to the project, tell me what you see. Most of the people are African American that stay in the projects. You go to Hill Plantation, tell me what you see. I say 98% of the white people stay in Hill Plantation.
Yeah, and sometimes people gotta understand where the African Americans are coming from. In schools, they get bullied for that, because they don't have enough clothes, they don't have enough shoes to wear, they barely have stuff to eat at home. So they have to understand that where we're coming from and what society is leading to.
Obviously, we like to think that there is no disparate treatment right now, but we really have to look at the disparity going back hundreds of years where there was disparity, and where now clearly there are some families in your community that don't have the same advantages.
Those areas in our community that I think see the highest incidence of crime have to do with academic challenges and economic challenges. So when resources are brought to those areas in a targeted and strategic way, that's a strategy that can help to reduce tensions and stress that exists between law enforcement and community members. And ultimately, it has to do with increased understanding.
Our goal is not to lock people up. Our goal is not to place people into the criminal justice system for the sake of placing people into the criminal justice system. The community expects us to protect and to serve. And by serving, if we can divert children from the criminal justice system, still addressing the inappropriate behavior, but giving them tools to resolve that in other ways, then that's what we do.
There is a lot of work that we have to do to get the trust back of the community, and there's a lot of things we can do.
So the goal was to rewrite our policies in school so that we don't go in and handle the small classroom disruptions and end up with a criminal charge. Kids don't understand that when they're disrupting class, the result could be an arrest. They're children. They make silly mistakes sometimes.
The Red DMC initiative gives us the opportunity to think, how can I solve this problem without putting the negative stigma on that individual, that child, for the rest of his life, and diverting them away from the criminal justice system.
When we came across a crime, really our options were limited on how we would deal with that. The old school practice that we wanted to go back to was you're there to solve a problem. Solving that problem doesn't always mean that you have to make an arrest, because it's proven time and time again that jail does not work for children. The recidivism rate is just over 30%, which is very high. And the problem is we were over-policing in our schools. We rewrote our policies to stop that.
We are very committed. This entire county is very committed in changing that.
We have very limited resources, but we're utilizing every resource that we have to improve our relationship with not only juveniles, but with our entire community.
We have made tremendous effort and great strides through policy revisions, our youth dialogue program, our Coffee with a Cop, training our deputies on restorative justice practices, basically getting back to our grassroots community-oriented policing and not over-policing our citizens and doing everything we can to serve them and take care of them.
The amount of juvenile arrests in Alachua County, both in the unincorporated sections and within the city of Gainesville, have decreased dramatically since this program has been implemented.
It takes a little bit of boldness and courage to be able to really look at how you're treating certain communities, right? And how you're treating certain sections of your neighborhoods, whether or not you're treating them the same.
I think the leadership of Sheriff Darnell and the other folks that work with Alachua County Sheriffs, they're doing a phenomenal job in really reaching out to the citizens and working with minority communities. There's a lot of innovation that's happening right now. Just recently, they appointed Sergeant Paul Perdue to be the DMC coordinator. That's cutting edge, actually, in law enforcement throughout the country.
I believe that the Alachua County Sheriff's Office is putting forth a lot of effort to do everything that we can to improve our relationship with the community and to reduce the racial and ethnic disparities in Alachua County. Of course, with that said, there's always more that can be done.
Some do care because I do see policemen stopping and giving little kids stickers and ask them is their day good and how was school today, and so yeah, I think they do care.
For years, the Alachua County Sheriff's Office has done a great deal of outreach in our communities. It's important for us to establish relationships and trust. Through many programs, innovative, best practices, we have been able to establish partnerships with adults and, most importantly, children. It's very important to reach children at a very early age so they see law enforcement as a person within this uniform, and this person is someone who has integrity, who cares about them, and that we are looking out for their well-being. Our primary mission is to serve our community. Through serving our community, we have to get to know our community, and they have to get to know us. So by having continuous dialogue, continuous partnership, continuous outreach, we establish those situations where we get to know one another. The role of law enforcement in our community has changed. It has evolved over the years. What used to be very much a toe-to-toe, we're going to make the decisions, we're going to take the action, we're going to get the things that need to be done without your input, has changed. And now we're standing side by side with the citizens and children in our communities. We're learning from each other. We're working together to solve the problems. But the majority of the time, we want to work with our community and make sure that our neighborhoods and communities are safe, our businesses are safe. We have shared values, and we recognize that with the majority of the population we serve. But we have to learn from one another. We have to evolve and change this situation of mistrust and damage. In 2015, we've seen a 34% decrease in the arrest of children throughout Alachua County, black and white. We've also seen a 74% reduction in arrest of children throughout the school district in Alachua County. We have to work together, and that's what we've been doing for years. We're going to build upon the relationships that we have made. We're going to build upon the understanding that we have gained from one another. There's a person in this uniform, and we recognize that we serve individuals.